Enjoy all of our shows from the OSG Sports Podcasting Network. The OSG Sports app is up and running. Download it today.
Pain heals. Chicks dig scars. Glory lasts forever.
Lighten up, Francis.
What in the wide, wide world of sports is going on here?
You're listening to The Review on the OSG Podcasting Network.
Hello, everybody, and welcome to an abbreviated version of The Review. I call it abbreviated because the last several weeks there's been 4 of us. The week before there was 5 of us.
Okay, I was like, why is he calling it abbreviated? The time's always the same.
This week there's only 2 of us. Me, OSG Phil, him, OSG Nelson. We are the online sports guys, at least 2 of the online sports guys, and this is our college football show, The Review.
Yeah.
John, for the last God knows how long, it seems like it's been about 17 years, we've been leading the show talking about what's going on in the great, wide, wonderful world of COVID and its effect on the game.
Yep.
Today, we're going to lead with actual games.
Sweet. Hit it.
Not all the big boys jumped on the board. A lot of Conference USA games, a few mid-major type level games, but some good college football out there, and enough to at least, I guess, for lack of a better way to put it, function as an appetizer.
Yeah. Hey, but I mean, regardless of how many games are in a season, isn't this what the first couple of games are anyway? I mean, your non-cons are always the appetizer. And it's just literally how it is, you know. It's your non-cons lead to your conference games, which lead to your championships and your bowl games and whatever it looks like in the postseason. So no, that's just how it is. So
no kickoff classic, no Chick-fil-A whatever game.
Yeah, the Chick-fil-A leather helmet palooza. Yeah.
Yeah, and Game and Jerry World kind of a thing, but plenty of games. Might as well start with probably one of the games that was one of the bigger surprises, at least to me.
Okay.
Army managed to find a game with Middle Tennessee State, and to say that Army was prepared probably would be an understatement because Army won the game 42-0.
Semper preparis, always prepared. and I was talking to the boss after this game was over, and I had seen the headline of this particular game, and for me, other than the shutout of Middle Tennessee State, it was the 99-yard drive that they pieced together. And for me, to be perfectly honest, I always enjoy it when I see Army and Navy and Air Force put a number on somebody and show that how completely and totally frustrating it can be to go up against this offense because you can't simulate it in practice. And when you see it, it is assignment football, and you have to be mentally locked in for the entire 60 minutes. And if you go the wrong way on any play going up against this offense, they are out the door. And it was, if I remember correctly, it was 62 carries, 320 yards rushing for Army in this game. They had 12 different guys carry the football. The QB was 2 of 4 for 28 yards. And the boss asked me, did they really have to pass? And I guess it was because of maybe a change of pace or something like that. But, you know, when McCoy has 3 TDs on the day, the lead Army past Middle Tennessee State, I want to say, if memory serves, that the drive itself, the 99-yard drive, took 12 minutes and 23 seconds off the clock in the game, and in the real world, that drive took 23 minutes. I mean, it was the length of a sitcom to get that on the board. I mean, literally, you and I know television. Television programs are right now at about 22 minutes and 50 seconds. All Army had to do was add another station ID in addition to the ad breaks at the bottom of the hour, another 15-second promo, another 15-second commercial. They had a half-hour sitcom block nailed. That's it. I mean, think of your favorite sitcom, The Goldbergs, Cheers, Seinfeld, whatever. The length of an episode of that with another 15-second promo was the 99-yard drive for Army, and it was a thing of beauty where you're just sitting there and you're mesmerized by this thing, and it's just still rolling and rolling and rolling. And then it goes in, and it's 42-0. But a 99-yard drive, it was a thing of beauty. I loved every minute of it.
Third and goal from Middle Tennessee 1. Handoff McCoy straight ahead, flips over into the end zone. Touchdown, Army.
The lack of ability to have a full offseason to prepare for games. The team that was the most disciplined, the team that is all about repetition, efficiency, and effective play, did that to a T. Middle Tennessee did not look ready to play this game. Army held them to 184 yards of total offense.
Yep.
Had a pick six, 4 turnovers. They just dominated the game. Love to see that. That was probably the biggest of the surprises, probably the biggest name game of the week, at least in my book. Memphis getting a team that has been ranked off and on over the last couple of years. Memphis with a good win to start the season, 37-24 over Arkansas State.
Yep.
Solid performance, nothing super spectacular.
No, but
Brady White threw for 4 touchdown passes. Ryan Silverfield gets his first win as a head coach for the Tigers. Solid game. The attendance for the game, 4,537 at the Liberty Bowl.
Okay, so I'm trying to think of what...
It's roughly 20%.
Okay, thank you. You've got Brady White, 26-36 for 275 and 4. Sean Dykes caught 10 of those for 137 and 2. Rodriguez Clark ran for 105 yards on 20 carries. So Arkansas State, and for those that like to do this kind of stuff on your weekends when it comes to matchups, the prop on the board was whether or not Memphis would win this one by double digits. And when Arkansas State led after one quarter at 14-7, everybody's sitting there saying, oh, okay, so Blake Anderson. Yeah, and that's the thing. The Red Wolves will come up and bite you.
Yeah, do not overlook them ever.
And so, the first quarter might have been a bit of a surprise, but the second quarter flipped it. Memphis Skins 21-14 at the break, and then they start to distance themselves in the third and fourth quarter. And I think it just comes to depth and preparedness and things like that, and just having more bodies that were ready to go for Memphis. So great home game. Glad that things got to go well for Memphis. But when you have this kind of regional rivalry, this will fuel things between Jonesboro and Memphis for the next 364 days.
Another game that was a little bit of a surprise, and I say this only due to the fact that they have been a perennial bottom dweller in Division I college football for the last decade or so, and that's UTEP getting a win over the Bionic Men of Stephen Austin.
Yeah. Well, and the thing is that it took, Stephen F. Austin, we know them as an FCS power. And, for those who are fans of the basketball tournament, we know that in the Southland, they'll come in as a 14 seed, they'll knock off a 3, and people will sit there and be surprised. When it comes to football, they are, once again, they're that FCS team like a Sam Houston. You have Sam Houston, you've got Stephen F. Austin, you have those teams in the state of Texas. And remember, the fertile recruiting ground that the state of Texas is. Just because you have all of these shiny objects of Texas, A&M, Tech, Texas, El Paso, what have you, doesn't mean that quality players don't drop down and are a part of the programs at the FCS level, like we mentioned with the Bearcats and with Stephen F. Stephen F was right there at the half. It was 17-14, but once again, I think it was just the numbers and the conditioning and preparedness and things like that. And UTEP just got to a point where they ground it down in the fourth quarter and got the touchdown late in the fourth to kind of salt things away. So I know that you're probably going to have to rework the bottom of the barrel a little bit to kind of sit there and figure out where UTEP goes, considering that they are there. But one of the cool things on the night, Stephen F. took a delay of game penalty in a show of equality. And I thought that was a really cool thing that Stephen F. Austin did as well. Some of your numbers, Gavin Hardison at QB, 17-28 for 212 and a score. Jacob Cowing caught 7 of those 17 for 116 yards. Deion Hankins ran for 113 yards on the ground. He got the other 2 scores for UTEP. So you're going to have to figure out what you're going to do with the Miners now that they've actually won a game.
Last game I want to hit on here before we move on to some other subjects. This game, too, in the state of Texas, and that's SMU getting their first win of the year, 31-24 over Texas State in what was a pretty close, hard-fought game.
Well, and this was the shocker. This was another one of those where folks were wondering whether or not, if you believe in juice box, if you have spare juice boxes and you wish to multiply your juice boxes, this one on the board, the question was SMU going to score 40? That was the biggest prop on the board for SMU here. Texas State, Jake Spavital, you see the difference with Jake Spavital as head coach for Texas State. It's a veteran defense. And for the Bobcats, this game was in San Marcos. And I do have a couple of questions about SMU, especially having to do with the uniform that they broke out in this particular game. With the cursive, for those watching on the YouTube side, they had cursive Dallas on top of the numbers on their all-white unis, and they had, I don't know how to describe it other than like a rake and a sand trap, and the stripes that you make in the sand trap with the rake. You had a sand trap rake make a D on the side of the helmet, and then they put the Mustang inside the D.
Bentley makes a man miss, and he's in again.
And so, once again, the boss was looking at those unis, and, I know that folks might go uni watch on this one, going back and looking at it. She was confused, and she was somewhat disoriented kind of by SMU's design, although you and I both know that it's all about marketing and things like that. But the sand trap rake D kind of threw the boss off for a loop a little bit.
A couple notes from this game. Only 75, well, I say only 7,500 people. 7,500 people in the 30,000-seat Bobcat Stadium. Masks were mandated to get in, but only encouraged for those who got to attend the game. The 7,500 being a little less than a quarter full.
Yep.
And the other thing that was noteworthy here is Texas State had to play without tight ends due to quarantine restrictions.
Both of their starting tight ends were out the door, and it was you had one of your quarterbacks that wasn't playing. You had 2 of your tight ends, and they had 6 notable absences, the Bobcats did. And one of the things I was talking to you before we got on the air for this week, the Bobcats believe in social distancing. How do I know this? You look in the end zone, and the way that the 4-letter had their cameras positioned for the game in San Marcos, they had the high end zone camera, and it went down all the way to the other end of the field in Bobcat Stadium. The band was socially distanced, and they took up all of the seats in the from the camera position, the south end zone. So literally, the south end zone was blocked off for the entire band, and the band was socially distanced. So I thought it was something that was very, very cool to see, where Texas State was concerned. So I think Texas State, they're going to be a pain this year for whoever they play. This team will not be the rollover that we're associating with them in years past, and so they might be drifting out of your bottom of the barrel too. A couple of other notes: we cannot let this game go by. Big Marty, Brother Martin, and our friends at North Texas got the Duke. They played Houston Baptist over the weekend as well. So North Texas got their first game on the board, 57-31 over HBU. They were up 23-10 at the break, scored 34 points in the final 2 quarters to get the Duke 57-31. Bailey Zapp, here's your numbers for the weekend. Bailey Zapp from HBU, 39 of 62 for 480 and 3. So North Texas gave up a lot of yards, but they turned it into Nintendo and got the Duke there. Oscar Attaway III from North Texas led everybody in rushing. 5 carries for 118 yards and 2 scores. Marshall had their game with Eastern Kentucky and Huntington. No problems for the Thundering Herd. It was a big kickoff there. 159-0. They had control pretty much from jump. It was 38-0 at the half. And then the 2 games back on Thursday. It's the second time we will have mentioned Central Arkansas on the show this year. UAB 45-35 winners over Central Arkansas back on Thursday, and South Alabama beat Southern Miss in Hattiesburg 32-21. Jack Abraham threw for 314 yards for USM. Jalen Tolbert caught 6 for 169 for USA in that game as well. So that's your breakdown of what happened in FBS and Division I. Obviously, there's the game Monday night between BYU and Navy. And get this, the game is a pick'em right now as we're talking. The game's a pick'em, and your total 49.5. They're thinking 28-21-ish. They're thinking somewhere right in that 20. They're thinking right somewhere in there, even though that's a pick'em right now.
It makes sense. I mean, it's kind of a medium. It's kind of a happy medium when it comes to how a college football game usually gets scored. But now we got to move on to the other topic of the day, the one that kind of lingers over everything these days in college football, and that's the impact of COVID, because it's kind of like a dark rain cloud or whatever you call it. It's still,
it is.
That specter is still hanging over everything.
Yes.
The latest news being that SMU, who we just talked about a couple minutes ago, their game next week with TCU was postponed due to some Texas Christian athletes being quarantined and not being able to be ready to play. Going to be a problem here going forward. It's almost like you're talking about what Major League Baseball went through at the beginning of their season, where some teams had problems and had to postpone games and then reschedule them for later.
Yeah.
The other big impact of the virus of note is Tennessee.
Woo.
The Volunteers had a scrimmage. There's, I guess, preseason final scrimmage planned for this past weekend. 44 people unable to play in the game due to either quarantine or injuries. And Jeremy Pruitt just said, "Nah, we're good. We're not playing."
As you should have. I mean, that's keep an eye on things and make sure that you can keep an eye on those 44 who were impacted one way or the other. No, completely with Jeremy Pruitt on this one. And just make sure, my thing in all of this, make sure that everyone associated with every program that's going to be playing in this college football season is as safe and as healthy as humanly possible. If it means that games slide, if it means that games are postponed, if it means that they're canceled, make sure that your students on your campuses, your student athletes, are as healthy as possible going through this. So I completely get where Jeremy Pruitt's coming from here. And so not a surprise, won't be the first time that we've seen something like this, and it definitely will not be the last.
Interesting note here, too, the Big 12, as they finalize their plans to get through this season and their season beginning to open up here in the next week or so, they have decided that any team playing will at least have to have 53 players able to dress out and play the games this season.
Yep.
And it was interesting to see what the breakdown of that was. What was it? I just read this. 7 available offensive linemen, 4 available defensive linemen, and at least 1 quarterback.
Yeah.
And that includes potentially walk-ons or anybody else. Just 53 people have to be able to dress out and play if the need arises, which is interesting.
Yeah. No, I mean, I get it. I mean, you're trying to pin down a number of safety. So basically what you're looking at, it's like an NFL squad. And if you think of it that way, then an NFL squad runs in that. I think the NFL squads run at 53, don't they?
They do.
So that way, I mean, it's a decent match. I mean, you're probably in some cases, if you're a Power 5 school, you might be cutting your game day roster in half. But your game day trot out in half, not necessarily your roster, but everybody that gets to run through the banner and stand on the sidelines. I get it. So pinning it down to an NFL number, that's cool because, I mean, if you think about it, what you're doing in theory is you're giving yourself 2 deep on offense and defense. So that's 22 and 22 is 44 plus 9 flex. And so I guess that means kicker, punter. And so 7 flex players. So no, I get it. I mean, it's 44 and 2 and gives you 7 more. So no, that's a decent number. I think that's a solid play.
Yeah. And then, of course, there's lingering adventures or misadventures of the Big Ten. The latest news there being the walkout protest, or whatever you want to call it,
Sure.
by parents and players this weekend at the Big Ten offices, and headlined by Michigan coach Jim Harbaugh, who says, hey, he can have his guys ready to go in 2 weeks.
Yeah. I mean, Clay Helton, before when all this stuff started, didn't Clay Helton say 3 weeks? That's what he needed? So, no, I completely and totally get that. Where was this talk before the decision was made by the conference? That would be my largest point here. And I honestly do not know how the commissioner survives this. I really don't.
Well, the whole chaos theory surrounding that conference got even crazier. At one point this week, there was a report released out of Pennsylvania quoting Penn State's head athletic trainer when talking to, I want to say, the Regional High School Association, said that anywhere from 30 to 35% of kids who got the COVID could potentially have myocarditis.
But then they had to walk that back. Because
that's what I was getting at.
Yeah.
It set off an initial Twitter panic. People were like, oh my God, this explains everything. And then, well, actually,
wait a minute.
Yeah. We think the potential exists that it could, but we don't know that it actually does.
Right.
The flip side news of that being that the Big Ten and the Pac-12, the other conference not playing in the Power Five, announcing that they're going to be doing 15-minute rapid return tests.
Okay.
But it's not going to change the fact that they're not playing this fall.
Right. Good for you having rapid return testing. Where was this notification before you had your Zoom call?
Yeah.
You know? Just saying.
Yeah.
Just me thinking out loud here a little bit. Just saying. Where was this talk beforehand? And also out of the life in the NCAA. And speaking of the Pac-12, the University of Utah has decided that they're going to have a boatload of furloughs in the athletic department. Once again, if you're not playing, I understand that, this is probably part and parcel to your day-to-day. They're going to furlough their entire athletic department.
Wow.
Furloughing the entire athletic department. So, once again, if you're not playing, you don't have any revenue, and this is from Kyle Bonagura over at the Four Letter. Implementing department-wide furloughs, including AD Mark Harlan, football coach Kyle Whittingham, men's basketball coach Larry Kristoviak. He said in a radio interview on Friday, he told ESPN 700's Bill Riley, we had to make some tough decisions because you can't wait for what might not happen. And it comes with the department facing a financial shortfall that Harlan previously estimated could range from $50 to $60 million due to cancellations and postponements. He didn't provide a specific timeline for when the furloughs will be carried out or for how long those employees, including himself, will be away from work. So sign of the times in the Pac-12.
Indeed. I found it's the whole thing here with the Big Ten and the Pac-12 to a lot of extent, I'm finding fascinating because they made an early commitment. We're done. Mm-hmm. And everybody bailed on them. They're not going to be eligible. If they play in the spring, they're not going to be eligible to play for the college football championship. The best they could do is there's discussion that they and the Pac-12 would compete for a spot in the Rose Bowl and play a Rose Bowl game in May or April or whenever it is that they finally get their season started. But then some backtracking by the Big Ten. Now there's talk of them considering starting to play anytime from after Thanksgiving to January 1st. All kinds of crazy ideas being thrown out there, playing in a dome situation where they just play in indoor stadiums because God knows if you're in Minnesota or Wisconsin, in Madison, Wisconsin, in the middle of January, ooh.
But I mean, and I say this looking at their logistics. The teams in those conferences, do you honestly believe that individuals are going to jeopardize their status of being drafted into the National Football League by, it's like, oh yeah, my school's going to play later. My school's going to play, during the winter. My school's going to play during the spring. Who in the wide world of sports honestly thinks that 100% of these kids are going to sit there and say, yeah, I'm right there with you. If I'm a top draft pick, I'm opting out or transferring, one of the two. I mean, we've seen this in college this season, where folks have transferred over, transferred out, done whatever because of what's going on in those two conferences. We see it at the high school level this year, where states that have either pushed or flipped their timelines to either December, January, or spring now have student athletes who are transferring and moving out of their home states to play high school football this fall so they can early enroll into their college and get ready to be a college athlete. What makes these schools in these power conferences think that A, this won't continue to happen to them on the college level, and B, that you're going to have all of your guys just sit there and say, it's like the scene in Ghostbusters, where Gozer the Gozerian shows up and is standing in between Rick Moranis the dog and Sigourney Weaver the dog. And Dan Aykroyd's character is ready to go and confront Gozer the Gozerian. What does Bill Murray's character say? Right behind you, Ray. That's what I'm envisioning here with all this stuff right now. All these student athletes, right behind you, coach. And the coach just goes wandering right on forward, and these kids are like, peace out, I got a future.
Sounds like a good place to jump off here in the first half of the show and go to the halftime segment. When we come back in the second half of the review, we're going to talk about a couple of big name players who have opted out here over the last week or so, having a big impact in the SEC. We'll talk ACC football, a little preview of what's coming up there in the ACC, and a few other news and notes as we go to the second half of the review. You are listening to the review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network.
The online sports guys would love to hear from you. Go to our Twitter page at OSG Sports for a comment, rant, or just whatever's on your mind about college football.
We know that every driver is different, and a one-size policy does not fit all. That's why Country Financial offers a variety of discounts, so you get the coverage you need and the savings you deserve. From good driver to good student, multi-policy to multi-car, we've got a discount to suit every driver. Call Jason Wright at 678-568-6871 today to see what you could save. On Facebook at Jason Wright Agency, or by phone at 678-568-6871. Discounts vary by state. Policies issued by Country Mutual Insurance Company, Country Preferred Insurance Company, or Country Casualty Insurance Company, Bloomington, Illinois.
If you've been hurt in a car wreck, contact my friend Steve Apolinski of Apolinski & Associates. He's been representing individuals for over 30 years throughout Georgia and Alabama. Email him at steve@aa-legal.com or call him 24/7 at 404-377-9191. The initial consultation is free.
I mean, listen, we're talking about practice. Not a game. We're talking about practice.
Congratulations, you have made it to the second half of the show. This is the review on the OSG Sports Podcasting Network. We are the online sports guys. As you have heard from the voice of God, the guy who does all our voiceover work, Mr. Tommy Palmer himself, the legend. You can find us on the internet. We are on social media at OSG Sports, on Facebook and on Twitter. He, of course, is at OSG Nelson on Twitter, and I am at OSG Phil. If you're watching us, you probably have found us either on Zingo.tv or on YouTube.
Yes.
Again, on YouTube, you can find us at OSG Sports. And John, I mentioned Tommy Palmer here at the beginning of this block. We've got to mention this part, and it kills me. I can't imagine what it's done to you because you knew him even better than I did.
Yeah.
And that's the passing of the voice of OSG Sports, Tommy Palmer.
Yep.
Who is also the voice of realistically, you could arguably call him the voice of high school football in the state of Georgia.
No question.
A legend in radio. Mm-hmm. One of the single nicest people you will have ever met in your entire life.
Yep.
And I know you're close to the family. All I can do is express my thoughts and my condolences to them.
Yep. Cancer sucks. I mean, that's the only thing I can say.
And I know he had a big influence on you too.
Well, I mean, Tommy. I mean, as I will maintain that Tommy forgot more about high school football than I will ever know, and I learned from him. Tommy was my master class in high school football, much like Jason Longshore is my master class daily over on the Soccer Down Here side and the SDH network side of things here at the network. Tommy was my master class in high school sports, and it has reminded me of a couple of things. It has reminded me how it is important for all of us to sit here and tell folks that we love them. Don't be afraid to say that. If you're a guy, don't be afraid to say that you love somebody if it's another guy. Don't be afraid to tell somebody that you love them, because you never know when that chance will be when you won't be able to say that anymore. And, you know, for me, it probably happened when my dad passed 10 years ago, when that was a learned lesson for me. Tommy was 76. He spent 60 years in radio in Eastern Georgia, started when he was 16. There's a story of Tommy when he left the coast and came up to the suburbs of Atlanta working in AM radio. And in the mid-60s, he got a record from this group out of Liverpool, England. Looked at it, and he's like, I'm not playing that. They're not going to be worth anything. So he didn't play it. Got promoted to the gig in Atlanta, learned his lesson, and he played the daylights out of the Beatles when he was in Atlanta radio. I will tell you that much. But then he gravitated back home to his time in Claxton, Statesboro, Savannah area. He was the first host, and I will lay this out for you. He was the first host of the Irk Russell show at Georgia when Georgia Southern University came online for football. And, you know, he was a part of all of that, and he lived in Statesboro, and that was where he made his, that was where he had Palmer Sports Media, and that was where he did the high school scoreboard show. But the bottom line is, Tommy left us too soon. He was 76. He fought lung cancer for about a year. And cancer sucks. So I would just recommend to everyone, if you've got a doctor's appointment, take it. Don't put it off to the side, and just go forward. And the biggest thing for me is just make sure that if you've got a doctor's appointment, keep them. Tell folks you love them. And remember who the folks are in your life that you learn from, and the lessons about how you carry yourself, how you represent yourself, and how you represent your name. And so there's a piece that I did over at GPB Sports, gpb.org. You can find it on the GPB Sports Twitter account and all that kind of stuff. It was a bit of a memoriam for Tommy. And it's in a very small way, my way of just tipping my hat to a man that I love very much, and I love his family a great deal. And so next week when we do the show, we'll all be in different parts of the world, and it's for different reasons. And I will be in Statesboro next week for the celebration of Tommy's life. So that's all I know. So yeah, just tell people you love them. Cancer sucks. Let's get back to football.
All right, back to college football and real life, things that are going on. Some big news this week out of Athens, Georgia. Kind of a stunner that came out of left field for most people, including a lot of the Georgia fan base, when projected starting quarterback Jamie Newman announced he's opting out for the 2020 season, having not ever played an actual snap for the Bulldogs.
Yeah.
For the little bit of the backstory here, Newman transferred in the offseason after a successful junior year at Wake Forest, where he threw for a ton of yards and made a pretty good impression. As decided to take his game to the SEC to see if he could compete there and improve his draft stock for 2021. We may never actually know what the reasons were for him bailing out. But he has decided that he's going to opt out and just go train and get himself ready for the 2021 draft. Leaves Georgia in a little bit of a hole. Two quarterbacks who have never taken a snap for them, battling for the number one job. DeJuan Mathis, who signed with them in 2019 and basically had a redshirt year due to a brain cyst that had to be operated on. From every report I've read, has been fantastic in spring practice, fantastic in fall practices, has looked really good. And JT Daniels, who transferred in from USC, hasn't been medically cleared to take a hit yet, but has been running drills with the team. One of those two guys looking like the starting quarterback. Does this kind of derail the Georgia hype train going into the season?
Oh, no, hype trains. Hype trains do not get derailed until you actually start playing games. And I know that this past weekend, folks were sitting there and they're going, all right, so let's make our projections as to who's going to win conferences and things like that. And everybody's going, oh, I don't know about Georgia and the SEC East. The Florida Gators are bringing everybody back. And hype trains are hype trains for a reason. Kirby Smart is making all of these millions of dollars, all of these numbers to the left of the zero for a reason. And so if you have to retool your offense, you retool your offense. If you turn it into more of a game manager kind of a thing, then that's what you do. You've got guys on campus that will be a part of it. And, hey, we probably haven't heard the end of portaling, considering what we were talking about in the first segment. So nothing. Let's put it this way. 2020 for me is the cruelest of cruel mistresses, and it does not surprise me and will not surprise me if anything out of the ordinary happens. So I will say, in this year where we have had so many things just thrown in front of us on a daily basis, let nothing surprise you. That is my motto for the 2020 college football season. Let nothing surprise you when it comes to where someone is, where someone was, where someone will be, how games are going to go. This season already, and we've just barely started it, for me, just has this element of weirdness already attached to it going in. So don't be surprised by more weirdness and just stuff happening going through.
Yeah, I think that might be the theme, the title of this week's episode is Don't Be Surprised.
Don't be surprised.
Newman being one of the highest profile guys opting out, probably the biggest one being Jamar Chase, wide receiver for the LSU Tigers. He opted out last week on a LSU team that is in rebuilding mode after a boatload of people leaving for the draft in this past year. Let's move on. Last week we talked a little bit about the SEC teams. We were hoping Brother Wilkie would join us, being one of our ACC experts, to talk ACC football, but life kind of got in the way there. So it's up to you and I.
Okay.
Not that there's any big surprises in the ACC. It's frighteningly predictable. Your favorite going in, easy to say, the Clemson Tigers. They return Trevor Lawrence, Mr. All-Everything quarterback, Travis Etienne at running back. Really, is there anything else that needs to be discussed about them?
Yes. I actually saw national pundits sit there and say that there were other teams that could be in the discussion for winning the ACC this year, and a lot of them were hovering over Notre Dame, and I'm going, really? Everybody was staring at Notre Dame. Notre Dame was projected to be an 8-win team, and everybody is still looking at Notre Dame as possibly the team that could upset everything in the ACC and beat Clemson. No.
Now, the only team I could see in the ACC that would even pose a challenge to Clemson at this point is the North Carolina Tar Heels, who finished 2019.
But that was the other one that was noticed by folks. Everybody was talking about North Carolina too, and I think they're rated like 16th in some polls and things like that.
They finished strong last year. Mac Brown did a surprisingly good job. They played a lot better than most people thought that they would. I was impressed with what they did last year. I like the quarterback situation there is in good shape. Sam Howell played really, really well as a true freshman.
Yes.
Sorry, the wife just came up to visit.
5 o'clock. Gotta go.
Hi.
If there's going to be a dark horse in the ACC, I think that's your team.
Yeah, but is it them or is it Notre Dame? That's my larger question.
I don't think we're really going to know. I think those are the only two teams with any kind of a shot at doing any damage to Clemson.
Yeah, but I still got to go with Clemson and then everybody.
God, yes. It's just a matter of who they're going to be playing in the conference championship game.
Right.
But it'll be interesting to see. And due to the time constraints that have been thrown upon me, I'm not going to be too deeply involved with the other teams in the ACC.
But we pretty much covered it.
I know. There's really not anything else to talk about.
No.
Louisville should be better under Scott Satterfield. Virginia Tech, Miami, Florida State, Pitt, Virginia. Throw them all in a pile.
Yeah.
Who knows where they'll finish? Virginia, Wake, NC State, Duke, Boston College, Syracuse, and Georgia Tech. Really anything from number 7 to number 15 in the ACC. Number 15 could be number 7. Number 7 could be 15. We're not going to know until they start playing games.
Correct. But I still think it's those three in Tier 1. Then you've got Tier 2. Then you've got Tier 3. And literally Tier 1 for me is Clemson, Notre Dame, North Carolina. Tier 2 is 4 through 7. And then Tier 3 is everybody else. So, yeah, I think it's right there.
And if we're going to talk about college football playoff, there's not a team in there outside of Clemson, I think, that has a chance of getting into that last 4. Zero. Zilcho, nada.
Nothing. Nope, nothing.
We've passed the 40-minute mark here on the show, so maybe I will wrap things up here for fear of getting my head cut off or being yanked away from the camera.
Yeah, don't get the vaudeville yank with the cane. That'd be bad form. Go ahead and send us home. Cut the promo and send us home.
If the Shepherd Crooks comes in, you know it happened.
Yep.
Next week's review, John, I think, told you at the beginning of the block he's going to be in Statesboro. I will be in Florida.
Yeah.
Getting away for a few days. I shouldn't be under a big time constraint there. Hopefully, Brother Wilkie and Brother J-Dub will be able to join us as well from wherever it is that they are at a given time. So, for the rest of the OSG Sports team, I am OSG Phil. He is OSG Nelson. We are the Online Sports Guys. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We will be back next week to talk more college football. Have a great week.